for school infrastructure, which was enacted last year. Meanwhile, a report released in 2013 by the South African Centre for Development and Enterprise indicated that only 25% of South African schools are mostly functional. And the World Economic Forum survey says the quality of South Africa's education system has plummeted from 140 to 146 out of 148 countries, with the quality of South Africa's maths and science education in last place. Now, to give us an analysis on the State of the Nation address, specifically looking at education, is Dr. Bernadette Johnson, who is the Executive Director for research at the Higher Degrees Unit at Vaal University of Technology. Doctor, good morning and welcome to AM News.
Thank you for the opportunity.
What do you make of the President's State of the Nation address last night, specifically in relation to education?
I think there was a lot of focus on a few issues in relation to education. As many have said before, there wasn't the full scope of the education complexity and crisis hadn't been covered. I think what I want to focus on is the problematic approach the President took to education.
Problematic in which way?
In which way? The challenge of the triple challenge, which he refers to as, we know, unemployment, poverty and inequality. And it seems to me that the focus of this thesis or conception is that skills will be the answer to economic development. And I think this has become very commonsensical, very much shared. And we do not sufficiently, I believe, question whether this is in fact the case. We have enough evidence that suggests that there are people who are unemployed even though they have the appropriate skills. That those who compete for jobs in the job market, for example, in scarce skills areas, still, there are too many who compete for one job. So the basic assumption is problematic, which I think underpins the entire approach and also accounts for why the particular focus on skills and education in relation to the economy. I think we need to sit back and really ask ourselves, 20 years into democracy, should we not be asking some critical questions in relation to the economy itself? In fact, should we not be asking about the structure of the economy? Now, I want to point out very specifically the three regional economic development areas which the President points to. The one being clothing, the other one being the footwear and leather industry, and the third one is the automotive industry. Now, it is quite interesting that these are areas for future economic development, given that we ourselves destroyed the clothing industry in the Western Cape. But as a University of Technology in the Vaal area, we are involved in the leather and footwear industry, in a context in which the manufacturing industry has been declining and persistently shows signs of declining. I think we must draw lessons, however, from our recent history. We have to, as we look at economic development, we have to understand how do we create a stable economy in order to enable planning of the appropriate skills. So, if we are planning for retail or footwear, then we must actually ensure that our economy is protected. We have to have a protected economy.
Now, he did mention education, and he did mention skills development, as you just indicated, which is the key to economic growth.
Yes.
But what else do you think he left out in that sentence?
He definitely left out service delivery economy. What are we saying about the service delivery as an economy? In fact, should we not be looking at how government can control and develop industries within the service delivery sector? Might that not, in fact, assist us in developing the capacity and infrastructure at the appropriate levels for local government delivery, but also for community problems that we are facing in terms of that triple challenge? So I think that we really need to, the National Development Plan, what it really needs is some oomph. I think what we're really looking for there is that we need to put meat into it in terms of its implementation. And I have looked and searched, I cannot find another model other than more state involvement.
State involvement in?
In the delivery for a common and public good, such as your housing, such as your road infrastructure. We need to be saying we own these parts of the economy as government, and we plan for skills development in that areas. It seems to me that that will give us greater certainty as higher education institutions on our planning frameworks, and it will allow us to create more stability. The problem isn't strikes. It's not labor unrest. What we need to be looking at is the underlying problem that is informing the labor unrest.
But doesn't that speak to the National Development Plan, though?
Absolutely. It speaks to the National Development Plan. We must make sure that everybody understands and appreciates the National Development Plan in the same way. And I am saying we will only see intergovernmental, departmental interrelations working as required by the National Development Plan if we take control by creating new industries owned by government. I do want to say, for me, the other big missing issue is inequality. Inequality in the schooling system. We have one Ministry of Basic Education. It's rather peculiar, but we have two systems on the ground. We have one for the rich and we have one for the poor. And I must say, I don't say this without self-reflection, that as the middle class, I think we send our schools, we benefit, and we say very little. We have very little commitment to the poor and impoverished schools. Often in those environments, the kids don't even have access to the facilities and abilities to compete globally. So we quote these world figures, global figures, but our context, in our own context, is not appropriately aligned. So inequality has completely been ignored, sadly been ignored, and there's been no reflection. I think it is highly problematic that we focused on the paradigm which said in the speech, that simply said that skills is the answer. And I put it here to you today that skills is not the answer in itself. There's the supply side, but there's the demand side too.
Doctor, I think we need a lot more time for this because there is the issue of our education system maybe being in a crisis, but we'll take that on another time when we have some more time available.
Thank
you so much. That was Dr. Bernadette Johnson, who is the Executive Director for Research at the Higher Degrees Unit at Vaal University here in Gauteng.